Hello, my name is Katie and welcome to the SOLITA podcast, Notes on Tears and Chaos. It's my first time recording in the new year, 2023. Just to talk about the new year for a second before we get into what I wanted to talk about for this episode, I'm feeling a little bit hopeful. I'm feeling like 2023 is a different kind of year for me because the past few years have been pretty shitty. Not gonna lie. So I really am just kind of hoping that it's a way for me to close the chapter on the past few years and just kind of let those things go, because I've gone through a lot mentally, emotionally, and just kind of cleansing myself and getting out of these bad situations and starting new things like this podcast, I think is what's making me feel a bit more hopeful about the coming year. So, with that being said, I wanted to talk about messing up, particularly about how I sometimes feel like I am not allowed to mess up. So, recently, I have had some falling outs with friendships and romances. By recent, I mean like in the past year and a half, particularly when I first moved to go to college, I started losing friends like every month. It was kind of wild. And when you move to a new city and you have barely any friends, that really takes a toll on you. And usually when these falling outs happen, they happen very suddenly and very unexpected. You know, it's kind of like being blindsided, which I feel like is the worst way to have a falling out with someone, is just when it's something that just happens out of the blue. It's like one day you're here in my life and then the next you're not, and we have completely different emotions about each other. Speaking from personal experience, that's what I feel like is like the worst, when you're blindsided, when it just happens and you just have to deal with it. You don't have time to prepare usually. And so when these falling outs happen, it makes me question the relationship I had with that specific person in general and my part in it. You know, I can think about it in two ways. I can think about it in the sense of like when someone ends a friendship with me, I usually think that's not fair for them to base our entire friendship based on a mistake that I make. You know, it's like if I do something and they don't like it and then the friendship ends, that's kind of whack. That kind of doesn't make sense to me, because it's like you're kind of throwing away everything that I did as a friend before that, every good thing that I did before that mistake. You're throwing away all of the emotions that we had together off of a mistake. You know, I feel like I don't get the chance to really apologize and make up for the mistake. You know, I don't think I've ever done anything so drastic to the point where it's like, yeah, you're right, you should not have me in your life. Like, I'm very toxic. Like, I don't think that. Like, I can think so many shitty things about myself, but I don't think I've ever done something so bad to someone that it like leads to them having to completely cut me out of their life, you know? However, when I end the friendship and we're looking at it from that perspective, it's usually because I didn't want to tolerate the disrespect that someone had shown me. And when I'm saying about like ending a friendship, I feel like that's very, very loose, because I honestly don't feel like I have ever ended a friendship like that, like so suddenly, so unexpectedly, because of like one thing. And I've had shitty things happen to me from friends. You know, I've had disagreements and arguments, and I've had to tell people like, you did this really fucked up thing to me and I do not like it at all. And I've confronted people. I used to be a huge confronter. I probably still am. And I guess it also depends on whether they apologize or not and whether they're going to do it again, because I have had those confrontations and the person usually is like, oh, I'm sorry, like, I won't do it again. And then they do it again. But I feel like once they mess up, some people kind of know and they just kind of leave me alone. Maybe it's my demeanor, maybe it's just how I act around them, but they just kind of leave me alone after that. But that is kind of like two sides to the coin, right? When someone ends it with me versus when I end it with someone, it's like, obviously I want to defend myself because I see everything from my perspective and I don't really see it from their perspective, so it all really depends. And in terms of my romantic situations, most of them, if not all of them, have been very, very short-lived. And we usually only know each other for like the most crucial part of the quote relationship, not actually a relationship, but like when we're getting to know each other is usually the part where we know each other and we don't really get past that. And it hasn't been until recently where I realized 1 month is not enough time to know a person. I used to think like I know so much about this person and we've only known each other for a few weeks. Like, no, you don't know anything about them. You don't know these people at all. But when these short-lived situations end, I tend to think, what went wrong? I usually think about what I did. I don't think there's points where I have ever... Actually, that's not true. There are times where I have ended it with people that were very short-lived, and in those situations I don't really consider them any of my romantic situations because I didn't really like them like that. But I'm talking about the people that I was very genuinely invested in, and then it doesn't happen, it doesn't really go anywhere, and I'm thinking, well, why? They showed a lot of interest in me at first and now they didn't, so obviously I did something, so what went wrong? One of the most recent heartbreaks I went through, everything went downhill after a specific event. And it didn't end until like a week after that. And I had this feeling that it was going to. It was my intuition, but we can talk about that another time. And obviously when I found out about this specific event that made everything just kind of unravel and go to shit, that made me think of everything I could have done differently to have avoided that outcome. I started thinking about like, I could have not said this and everything would have been fine. Or I could have not done this that night and everything would have been fine. And I go far back to other points in the relationship where everything was fine, And I think like if I hadn't done this or maybe I did that, then things would have worked out differently in the end. And it just makes me spiral because it's always coming down to like I could have done something different. And obviously this feeling of like I messed up, I fucked up, and I did something wrong, it makes you feel really shitty. And honestly, not necessarily have done something wrong in like a relationship situation, like a romantic situation, but more of like, I messed up. Maybe this wasn't a wrong thing to do, but maybe I just messed up in terms of like this person, because this person didn't take it the way that I meant it, and everything spiraled because of that. So it's more like I messed up, and that made me feel really shitty. And it also makes me feel out of control because I can't go back in time and I can't change what I did. So it makes me feel like very, very out of control. It's like, damn, if I had that power, I would do it. Because if I had known better, if I had known that it was going to cause all of this, I wouldn't have done it, And I am coming to terms recently with how messing up does not have to have this super negative connotation to it. Usually we think of messing up and we think we did something wrong. And that's why I had to like backtrack that statement I just made about, oh, I messed up, I did something wrong. That's usually not what it is. It can be, but not all of the time. So, as with anything that is wrong with my brain, it usually stems from childhood, right? That's usually where they go in therapy and they're like, let's talk about your childhood. Let's think about how this came to be. And I've thought about it. I had a strict childhood. I'm Hispanic. I had a Hispanic mother. She had her rules. I'm not going to say that she was the most strict because later on in life, I've seen and I heard, and I've even, when I was in high school, I've seen other parents be really strict to their kids. And I'm like, damn, that sucks. But I do believe that I had a strict childhood. she wasn't the strictest, but I didn't have the most freedom to do everything that I wanted or everything that other kids were doing. A lot of the times I feel like I was just scared of like disappointing my mom and getting her mad. And so most of the times I complied. And, you know, I feel like she might think of this differently. It's like, did you really comply? Okay, like I was a teenager. I'm sure there are times where I acted out in my own way, but I never like did anything rebellious in middle or high school. I never smoked. I never drank. I never snuck out. I never did any of that stuff, you know? I never really skipped class. If anything, like me skipping class meant I asked my teacher that I wanted to stay in her class. Like, can you email my teacher and let her know that I'm staying with you? And they'll do that. And like, I had permission to skip class pretty much. So I never really did anything rebellious in those preteen to teen years. And so messing up for me meant not getting a good grade. It meant not listening to my mom's advice on certain things. And it was always, oh, you always do whatever you want. That's what she would say to me. And it would piss me off. I hated it because I truly did not think that I did whatever I wanted. I would have loved to have just gone out whenever I wanted, come home whenever I wanted, and have done whatever. But instead, I wasn't like that. You know, maybe sometimes I didn't study for a test. I didn't do the best on my homework or whatever because I was just freaking burnt out and I was not the best student. I knew that for a fact. But I still tried, you know? And so when I tried and I would mess up in those little areas and it got to the point where it was like, oh, Katie, like you always do whatever you want. It would infuriate me because honestly, I didn't. And looking back on my high school years, I miss it so much because I wish I had done things differently. I wish I had acted out more. I wish I had snuck out and gone to parties and experimented with so many things. And high school was a whole different thing, a whole different topic that I can like go so deep into. But I just wish I had done more of those like rebellious teenage things. It's like when you're a teenager, you just feel like there's this weight on you because you don't know anything else other than where you are currently. I mean, no, I never imagined having the freedom that I do now. And I always thought that I would never have it. And so when you're in high school, having this feeling of like messing up just feels so much more intense. And I just wish I had done more with my experience. But I didn't because I was so afraid of the consequences of messing up. And I feel like I really missed out because of that. And again, this is all out of my control. So I tend to look back on high school and think like, I wish I could go back with the knowledge that I know now. And that's impossible, obviously. And so I feel out of control wanting to reminisce on all of these experiences and I should have done this, I should have done that. Because I can't go back and I can't do those things anymore. I can do them now if I want to. Disclaimer. But I can't really change what I did back then, you know? And this affects my current relationship with messing up as an adult in the sense of I have a lot of insecurity. You know, I feel very unsure of myself because I felt so much in high school and in middle school. Like, I don't want to mess up. I'm trying my hardest and it feels like it's not enough still. And so I have all this insecurity and I have this habit. I've had this habit for a while where I assume that somebody hates me until they prove me they like me otherwise. I had this in high school for sure. In middle school, I'm not too sure that I had it in middle school, but definitely in high school. I always assumed that when I met someone, automatically they hated me until they showed me that they didn't hate me. You know, maybe it was like they said hi to me in the hallway or they invite me somewhere, or they're nice to me, they talk to me and I'm like, oh, they don't hate me. But before that, I just assume you hate me. And this feeling fluctuates. Like one day they might like me, one day it doesn't seem like that anymore. And mind you, this is still my thought process as an adult, and that's so bad. It's so bad to be an adult with this mindset, this very negative mindset and very negative perception of yourself. Because I will think of like, oh, one day they like me, one day they don't like me. So why might they not like me? You know, it must be because of something that I did. And it usually will come down to my personality. I behaved a certain way, and now they think I'm stupid or annoying or too much. And so I've become much more reclusive and quiet because of this fear. Because I fear that the reason that someone might not like me is because of something that I said or did. And so if I just don't say anything, if I don't talk, if I don't cross a line and just keep to myself, then no one could possibly hate me. Maybe they just won't pay attention to me. And honestly, most of the times I feel fine with that because they're not focused on me, and I'm not going to have this fear that people are talking behind my back, calling me all these names, calling me stupid, clueless, annoying, that people don't like me for whatever reason. And usually the reason in my brain is that I'm just being myself, who I want to be in that moment. And I had someone tell me recently, you're too afraid of what people think of you, and so it handicaps who you really are. I don't know if handicaps is the right word, but that's the exact word that I remember them saying. But I feel like I need to preface that by saying I don't really know who I am. I think I lost a lot of that in the past year or past years of my life. And I don't really know who I am. So I feel like in moments, there are ways that I want to act, but I'm afraid of doing that. And maybe when I actually am with certain people, I act the way that I am. But I think it's a very, very, very few select people that will actually be able to see how I actually am. And it's different people in different times. But it's a very, very select few. And so sometimes I feel like, well, what if I do act the way that I want to act in that moment? What if I want to say what I want to say? And I show who I really am in that moment. But these people still leave me. They still think badly of me. They still think I'm annoying and stupid for thinking that. And they think badly of me, you know? Then what was the point? And this is a very dangerous line to cross because it starts to make me feel like being myself is a mistake. You know, anything that I say is a mistake. Anything that I do is a mistake. Anything that happens in terms of me acting out and me taking up space, if someone doesn't like me, it's all my fault because I said something, I did something, and I just didn't keep to myself. And I think also because of this, I started to idolize other people. Because I think so poorly of myself and my actions, I put other people on this pedestal. I have this idea of perfection, which we all know is very unrealistic. It does not exist. But sometimes it's hard to accept that when you're seeing all these people on social media who post all of these things that are going right with their life. And I idealize a lot of people on social media that don't know me. They're not famous, but I am obsessed with them. And when I see them on Instagram with the perfect feed and all of these great pictures, and they're doing something with their lives, they have these careers and they have these relationships and everything, it feels like they can do no wrong. You know, they played their cards right, and that's why they got the boyfriend. That's why they got the career. That's why they have all these followers. That's why so many other people admire them, including me. That's why I admire these people that I don't even know who they are. I don't know what their morals are. I don't know what their values are like. I don't know what kind of people they are, but I put them on the pedestal and I admire them. And for what? It's because I only see what they choose to put online. And so I'm only going off of that information. Even when people post negative stuff online, it always has this like positive outlook on it. You know, if someone decides to post on Instagram saying like, oh, I just got into an accident, but I'm recovering, like, thank God, you know, life is precious, you know, it's always like the silver lining. Oh, I just got laid off from this job, so I wanted to share how I felt, and we just have to remind ourselves to be confident, like we've got this, you know, it's always something positive, even with the negative stuff that people choose to post and choose to show other people, and the times when they feel the most vulnerable, it's usually with a silver lining and it has a positive outlook, you know? And it's so hard to separate people from all of that and realize they are also human beings and they also mess up. Realistically, everyone messes up. Everyone has a moment they look back on and think, I probably should have acted differently. I should have not said that. I should have done this instead. Everybody has that. Everybody has some form of regret. Even if you live life with no regrets, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure there is one moment where you're like, damn, I really doofed that one up. And honestly, it's impossible for us to know how things work right off the bat. You know, that's why we mess up. We don't know things from the get-go. It's not our job to know these things right away, you know, but it is our job to learn them and to put them into practice. We mess up, we apologize, we see it for what it is, and we learn from it so that we don't do it again. And so the first step that I am taking in terms of developing a better relationship with making mistakes is the first step that being myself is not a mistake. And this is something that obviously I am still learning. I sometimes feel like I drive people away because of something I said that might seem stupid or how I act. You know, I get embarrassed a lot. And I have those war flashbacks where I'm like, I'm so dumb. Like, why did I say that? And usually, sometimes it'll be like a person's reaction wasn't even bad. But I'll still be like, why did I say that? Like, why did I do that? That's so embarrassing. And so I feel like I drive people away because of that. And I'm coming to terms with how, even if I do drive people away for acting the way that I do and saying the things that I do, I just have to come to terms with the fact that those are not my people. You know, I have to take them down from this pedestal that I personally have put them on. And I've been told that I purposely cut people off and push them away. To an extent, I think that I tend to push people away because it may hurt less to be myself and then have them leave. You know, that's part of it, where I'm kind of getting like a jump start. I'm going to cut you out of my life. And I'm not really like cutting people out of my life. Let's backtrack here. I'm not cutting people out of my life. There's no one that's going to be like a really good friend to me and then I'm going to be like, nope, I'm not going to show you who I am. I'm just going to cut you right out of my life. No explanation. I'm dipping. I've never done that. That's not what I'm talking about. But in the sense of like, maybe there's just some people I won't let in. And I don't want to show them every part of myself because I'm afraid of how they will react. And then they'll leave me and it'll give me more trauma and remind me of other people that have left me, even though they knew things that were going on with me and they still chose to leave and they still chose to do the same thing. That's kind of what I'm talking about. But usually if I will cut someone off and push someone away, it's usually for a good reason. I'm not just gonna cut a good person out of my life that benefits me. Obviously not. It's usually for a reason. But in the end, the right people will stay, you know, and they will match your energy. And that kind of seems like a little counterintuitive maybe, where it's like, well, you just said that you push people away, so what if they want to stay but you're pushing them away? They're not the right people. If I'm trying to push them away because they did something and it's like we have a complicated situation. That's usually what it is. We have a complicated situation. You can't be in my life. So that's why I push them away. But when it comes to something else of like a regular friend, the right person will stay, you know? And I cannot lie. The hater in me is about to come out. There are some people that I see out in the real world, public, usually on my campus, and I will think that they are so annoying. And that's an internal thing that usually comes down to a me thing and has nothing to do with them. You know, and regardless of how I view them, they still have people that love and care for them. And I don't really know who they are. I just know how they're acting in that moment. And honestly, who gives a fuck what I think? Who cares what I think? I'm not going up to them and being like, you're annoying. You need to chill. You know, I'm just going to keep it to myself. It's not going to bother me if I just ignore it and whatever. At the end of the day, I don't know who these people are. Usually when I meet people, I start to think like, oh, I feel so bad for thinking that of them. And that's a me hater problem. Another thing we can talk about, another internalized issue. But at the end of the day, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And that's fine. Those people, they could probably care less if I did go up to them and told them that they're annoying. They're going to be like, who the hell are you? You know? I'm the bitch that's quiet and reclusive and doesn't talk to anyone. So they're literally going to be like, who are you? And it doesn't matter. It doesn't diminish their value if I like them or not, you know? And that goes for everyone. It's not going to diminish my value, whether somebody likes me or not. It's just going to prove that they're a hater. I just called myself out for being a hater, for sure. And that is another episode that I will talk about. Second step to developing a healthy relationship with making mistakes and stop feeling the way that I do is to forgive myself for making my mistakes. I am not meant to know everything. And sometimes common sense is not that common. You know, I will be in situations where I'm like, I should have known better. And I'm sure a lot of people have been in those situations where like, I should have known better. I shouldn't have done this. Like, why am I so dumb? I shouldn't have trusted this person. I shouldn't have gone to this place. I should have known better. But when you're saying this, sometimes it's because of something that you've never experienced before. So how are you supposed to know better if you've never experienced this particular situation that you're in? And even if you have been in this situation before and you made the same mistake and, you know, maybe you should have known better, at the end of the day, human behavior and emotions are not black and white. They are so much more complex than that. And emotions and behavior are so non-linear. You're not just going to act one way for the rest of your life. You're going to do things that are out of character sometimes. The intrusive thoughts will come out into intrusive actions. I hope that makes sense. Intrusive thoughts will come out into very bad actions. That's what I meant to say. But there's that false narrative of perfection where you feel like, oh, I learned, or at least I experienced this before. I have to know better next time. But you're still learning. It'll come out in a different way. You know, the same mistakes are going to come out in different ways and you're going to be like, damn, I should have known better, blah, blah, blah. It's that false narrative of perfection. You're not going to know everything off the bat. You're not going to act perfect every single time. You're going to make mistakes. And I feel like what is effective is not putting yourself down, but rather holding yourself accountable and then learning from it. You know, putting yourself down and saying, I should have known better. I'm so stupid. Why did I do this? It can very much lead to what is wrong with me because I should have known better. So what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my brain that I acted that way? Why did I do that? Something is clearly wrong with me. And that's not a good thought to have as someone that constantly asks myself, what's wrong with me? Why is it that when this thing happens, and I make a mistake, you know, I should have known better, and this happens and that happens, so many bad things are happening to me, so what's wrong with me? There's a reminder in this that no one else is experiencing life the way you are experiencing it. And that is both scary and freeing. It alleviates yourself from this negative connotation that people associate with you, because you have this very unique experience that is your life, and everybody else has their own unique experience that is their life, and nobody is going to live your life exactly the way that you are living your life. So honestly, no one is ever going to truly understand what you're going through and what you're thinking and what you're feeling. But a positive side of this is that you can release yourself from all those negative things that people think of you. Because it's like, at the end of the day, you truly don't know me. You don't really know everything that's going on in my brain. You know, you are not what other people say you are. I am not what other people say I am. Because at the end of the day, nobody truly knows me like me. Even if I feel like I don't even know who the hell I am, I'm the only person that is going through my life. And sometimes after I've made a mistake, I start to think, am I a bad person? And I've asked this to people in my very, very weak, down bad moments. And I've had them say like, no, you're not a bad person. And even if they don't agree with me, and even if they're like, yeah, you're a shitty ass person, there's that part about self-forgiveness. I don't need other people to dictate what I am and what I am not, you know. I'm not a bad person for making mistakes. I have never felt that I have ever done something super drastic for me to be like, I'm a bad person. It's usually in my weak moments where I'm like, I've done bad things, but that does not mean that I'm a bad person. And it's hard to forgive yourself for mistakes that you've made, especially if it comes down to a very bad outcome, like having a friendship fall out or having someone break up with you. Self-forgiveness is the most freeing thing that you can do for yourself. And so there's also this area about making mistakes, knowing that they are mistakes and you're still going to make them. For example, spending time with someone that you probably shouldn't. Speaking from personal experience, I've been told that I need to live in the present moment because I definitely worry about the future too much. And so I think in order to not make a mistake in the future, I have to think about the future. I have to think about how it's going to play out. So I never live in the present moment and I start to lose control and I start to freak out. Sometimes we can just make mistakes knowing that they are mistakes. As long as you're not continuously hurting someone and as long as you're not continuously hurting yourself. And I actually didn't put that last part in my notes about hurting yourself. And I didn't realize that until I read through my notes and was like, wait, you probably also shouldn't make mistakes if they hurt yourself. So that really says a lot about how I view myself and take care of myself. But making mistakes doesn't always have to be a bad thing. And your goal should never be to hurt someone, you know, but realistically, we've all been there. We are going to keep coming across people that we are going to hurt. And it's a very, very sad truth, especially for someone like me who is 22 years old. I am going to meet so many people in the future, in so many years, that are going to mean so much to me, and I'm going to hurt them. And it's never going to be my intention to hurt them. I hope I don't go into some kind of villain arc where I'm like, you know what, I'm going to hurt this person on purpose. I hope that's not who I become. But thinking about it now, I'm going to come across people that are going to mean so much to me and I'm going to hurt them by accident. And it's not going to constitute the kind of person that I am. Just because I hurt someone doesn't mean that's it. You know, making mistakes is going to happen. And the people meant to be in your life will be patient if they want to be. They will stick with you, even though they know you're making dumb mistakes, even though they know you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And maybe you should know better and you shouldn't be doing this and that. The right people will be patient with you. That being said, no one is going to constantly tolerate disrespect. So be cautious of that, because the key point here is to learn. If you're making the same mistakes and you're not showing any bit of learning from them, then that's when making mistakes goes wrong. Making mistakes and then learning little by little, like, oh, maybe next time I'll make the same mistake, but I'll do this differently. And so I kind of learn with each time that I make the mistake, and the right people will be patient with me and they'll encourage me to learn. But the point is that you learn. And so more and more, as the years go by, I am recognizing my flaws or my toxic traits. I think differently of myself than I did a year ago. I used to think, I am so emotionally mature. I know how to communicate my feelings. I know what to do. And the past year has shown me that that is not entirely true. And I have some toxic qualities that I need to work on. And that's fine. I am not perfect. I have my fatal flaws, and being self-aware of them, I think, is going to be very helpful. And at least being able to acknowledge that I have these toxic traits and learning from them and being like, okay, let me try to unlearn this. Let me try to fix this so that I don't end up hurting other people in the future, and even hurting myself by sabotaging relationships and friendships. At the end of the day, as long as you learn from these mistakes, then the mistakes you make are necessary to your experience. Whether it means that certain people aren't meant to be in your life, or situations just don't go the way that you expected them to. All of these things come together to form your own personal experience, which is something that only you can experience. And it is very unique and individual in that way. And it is something very, very beautiful and painful sometimes. But that's life. Well, that's all I have to say about that. And I really enjoyed this episode. I feel like I really was able to articulate what I wanted to say. That was a bad time to mess up. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I really did. If you like the podcast, follow, leave a review. If you want to say something nice, go ahead. Be sure to follow the podcast on the socials, on the podcast Instagram, which is at SOLITA Pod. I have my own personal Instagram at _Katie Torres. That's _KATHIETORRES. And then my Twitter and TikTok are both at Y2Katie. Y2KATHIE. Wonderful. So I wish you all a very happy new year. This is actually going to come out a little later in January, but still kind of the new year. Hope you all take care of yourself, make mistakes as long as they don't hurt you and don't hurt other people. Be kind to yourself, and I will try to remember that for myself as well. All right. Goodbye. Goodbye.